Hold up, did you just celebrate that extra $40 ODSP is adding to your July check? Before you toast with a $7 latte, hit pause. Because while Queen's Park brags about a 2.8% raise, the rent on a studio just jumped 5% overnight, and groceries are climbing faster than you can say inflation. An elevator repair for your wheelchair, a single specialty diet run, one surprise paratransit fare, and poof. That new money is gone before the deposit even clears. We're talking real numbers, real gaps, and real strategies they're not telling you about. By the end of this video, you'll know why the raise is basically a rounding error, how Ontario still lags behind provinces that treat disability with dignity, and the 3 pressure points that could force a true base rate reset before the 2026 election. Smash that like if you're done with token increases and ready for real change. Subscribe and ring the bell right now so you never miss the payment date alerts, benefit hacks, and deep dives into the Canada Disability benefit that could actually move the needle. Drop your biggest budget struggle in the comments below. Your story fuels the next advocacy push. Ask ChatGPT. Cost of living math. A 2.8% bump can't catch runaway bills. The July 2025 indexation adds about $40 to a single adult maximum, nudging the monthly ceiling from $1,368 to $1,408. Sounds decent until you stack it against the bills everybody is actually paying. Average apartment rents in Ontario are now $2,101 a month, and even after a recent dip, Toronto still sits at $2,327 for the typical unit. In other words, one line item, shelter, already outruns the entire ODSP check by $700 plus before utilities, phone, or transit. Groceries aren't any kinder. Food prices have jumped 21% between April 2021 and April 2024, leaving shoppers balking at $40 packs of chicken and $18 bags of grapes. Layer in prescription copays and today's average internet bill, and that 2.8% raise is absorbed within the first week of the month. Indexation merely freezes the shortfall in place. It doesn't reverse the 4-figure gap between benefit income and real-world costs that keeps recipients lining up at food banks or couch surfing to avoid eviction. Unindexed extras and policy dead zones magnify the shortfall. The 2.8% hike applies only to basic needs and shelter caps. Dozens of crucial add-ons remain frozen. The $149 personal needs allowance in long-term care, the $250 pregnancy/breastfeeding supplement, and special diet rates haven't moved a cent, so their real value shrinks every month that inflation ticks on. Meanwhile, overall CPI cooled to 2.4% in 2024, but shelter costs climbed 5.7% and services like paratransit and home supports rose even faster. Because ODSP's inflation formula tracks average prices, it ignores the fact disabled households spend disproportionately on exactly those categories rising the quickest: accessible housing, assistive tech, specialized food. Add to that the program's 75% clawback on earnings above the $1,000 exemption, and recipients trying to work their way ahead often lose most of every extra dollar. Advocacy groups are therefore pushing for a one-time base rate reset to the MBM poverty line, annual indexing of all supplements, and a higher earnings cap. Until Queen's Park tackles those structural gaps, each modest CPI bump will feel like pouring a cup of water on a house fire, appreciated, but nowhere near enough to change the outcome. The extra cost reality: disability adds 30 to 40% to basic budgets. Ontario indexes ODSP to the average household's inflation basket, but a disabled household's basket is far costlier. Inclusion Canada estimates that the poverty line for someone with a disability should sit about 30% higher than the normal market basket measure because of recurring outlays for mobility aids, attendant care, adaptive tech, specialty diets, and home modifications. A 2020 Wellesley Institute study drilled deeper. In Toronto, thriving with a moderate disability costs 39% more, roughly $81,000 a year, than living costs for a non-disabled peer. Those premiums dwarf the July boost. An extra $40 a month does nothing when a single wheelchair repair can wipe out a year's worth of indexation, or when paratransit copays, compression garments, and vet bills for a service dog collectively climb faster than CPI. By linking raises to the standard basket, Queen's Park preserves the gap instead of narrowing it, leaving recipients to fund the disability premium out of money that was already 40% below the ordinary poverty line. Until ODSP is benchmarked to a disability-adjusted basket, each CPI bump is destined to be a rounding error. Housing bottleneck. Inaccessible rents swallow the raise. Before it lands, Ontario's rental market remains brutally tight. The average vacancy rate in major centres rose to only 2.2% in 2024, while two-bedroom rents still jumped 5.4% year-over-year despite new supply. For ODSP recipients, this crunch is magnified by accessibility needs. Units with roll-in showers or elevator access are rarer and pricier. In Toronto alone, 81,000 households sit on the subsidized housing wait list, facing waits of 7 to 10 years for an affordable unit. Private market auctions aren't kinder. A bachelor now averages $1,800, already $400 above the entire ODSP maximum even after July's $40 top-up. Scarce supply drives landlords to demand 12-month employment histories and credit scores many recipients can't provide, pushing people into motels, couch surfing, or shelters. The 2.8% lift doesn't touch first and last month deposits, rising utility hookup fees, or the $60 taxi each time an elevator outage strands a wheelchair user. Without a parallel investment in portable housing subsidies, new accessible builds, and faster rent geared to income placements, the extra $40 is effectively pre-spent the moment it appears, and the housing crisis keeps widening the affordability gulf. 3 concrete actions you can take right now light up your MPP's inbox and phone lines. Find your riding rep at ola.org/members and send a 2-minute email that pairs your personal cost of living story with a specific ask. Commit to a one-time base rate reset to the market basket measure and index all ODSP supplements. Follow up with a voicemail. Staffers log every call. 5 personalized messages from constituents carry more weight than a 1,000-name form letter. Join or spark a local advocacy blitz. Groups like ODSP Action Coalition, Income Security Advocacy Center, ISAC, and Disability Without Poverty run letter-writing nights, social media storm days, and pop-up rallies outside constituency offices. Adding your voice amplifies reach, and showing up in person forces cameras and politicians to pay attention. No chapter nearby. Host a 1-hour Zoom call, share template scripts, and tag #ODSPovertyLine on TikTok or X to build instant momentum. Crowdsource the data that moves budgets. Keep a 1-month inflation diary of every disability-specific expense, paratransit, medical supplies, adaptive tech. Snap receipts, total the extra cost premium, and submit it to advocacy campaigns compiling real-world evidence for Queen's Park's 2026 budget hearings. The harder the numbers, the tougher they are to ignore, and your diary could be the stat that tips the scale toward meaningful reform.